This is Coach Lee, and you're listening to The Door Report.
Welcome back into The Door Report, and welcome into episode 351 on an icy, cold Wednesday evening, January 28th, 2026. I'm Will Byrum, joined as always by my co-host, Trevor Hulan, a.k.a. Hack Squat, Jim Duggan. Here at The Door Report, we are presented by 615 Collectibles. If you're into sports cards or sports memorabilia, check out 615 Collectibles on eBay. Items include NFL team packs, graded cards, individual cards, and more. Shipping is always fast and free. If you are interested in sponsoring TDR, reach out to doorreport@gmail.com. Would love to get a new presenting sponsor on the show. Next up, we have Rhoback Activewear. There's only one way to describe Rhoback: best fit, best feel. For those who aren't familiar with Rhoback, they are completely changing the game with their incredibly comfortable activewear. Rhoback has released so many items within their newly licensed game day collection, and it's our favorite. With novel polo designs and clean hoodie and quarter zip designs for some of your favorite schools, it's definitely worth checking out. Nobody else in the market is pairing these levels of custom designs with this quality of activewear. Rhoback's everyday shorts or their Delta performance bands are the perfect pairing as well. They are both super comfortable, have an elastic waistband and great fabric that is made to have the appearance of a nice short look, but the comfort for a day on the move. Rhoback has also been proudly leading the NIL charge, having signed partnerships with multiple college football stars, both past and present, and are becoming the go-to brand for college athletes across the country. You can use code VAN20, that is VAN20, all capital letters, no spaces, on rhoback.com for a generous 20% off for all new customers. That's spelled Rhoback, RHOBACK.com. That's 20% off all performance polos, shorts, and more with code VAN20. Last but not least, the NIL store. Visit nil.store/doorreport15 and find some of your favorite merchandise and gear from your favorite Vanderbilt athletes. Use code doorreport15, all capital letters, no spaces, at checkout for 15% off your entire order. Check that out. Get your basketball gear. We're in the middle of an incredible basketball season for men's and women's basketball, so definitely check out nil.store/doorreport15. Also, to plug it in here early, TDR hats back in stock. Visit the doorreport.store and get your TDR hat today. A few people have ordered them since they got back in stock. There's going to be a little delay in the shipping because everything is ice. So normally those would already have shipped out, but everything is ice right now. Even though me and Trevor were able to make, and Miller, were able to make it to Memorial Gym to watch Vanderbilt stomp Kentucky 80-55.
Built to ass.
Trevor, we have a lot to get to here on episode 351. Let's get a vibe check before we dive into that.
Yeah, certainly. Vibes are better this week than they were last week, as one would understand. Not going to get too high, but also not going to stay as low as I was. I'm going to stay at a nice 7.5 out of 10. I'll stay at a 7.5 out of 10.
Feels right. What were you last week?
Ooh, below 5. Maybe
yeah,
like
you were low.
3, maybe like I was down bad after that 3-game skid.
I think you were lower than I was last week. I think you were maybe higher before, but you got lower, and now you're back more to where I've...
No, from the first game against Lipscomb up until that 3-game skid, I was like a 10 out of 10, I think, every week. And then I plummeted to like a 3 or a 4.
So hopefully right now you're listening to this, and the audio sounds crispy and buttery.
Yes.
We are going to be exiting StreamYard, exporting, and checking the audio in between each segment, because last week's episode, on episode 350, which should have been celebratory, had some audio quality issues. A real throwback episode for the TDR diehards that have been listening from the beginning. A real throwback audio episode.
It's just like old times.
Yeah, for everybody new to listening, you were probably, what the hell is this? So shout out to all the originals, the OGs that didn't have a problem with that sound quality. But on episode 351, we have a slight update on the transfer portal, some news on the Diego Pavia front, as well as a little bit of a look into women's basketball, who just suffered their first loss of the season so far to South Carolina. And then we're going to mainly focus on men's basketball and their bounce back that they're experiencing. A lot of get right. I don't know what you keep looking over at the left.
I keep looking at Miller because he keeps sticking his tongue out at me. That's not true. I was just looking at him.
I keep thinking you're looking at something. But Vanderbilt basketball back on the right track has raised the vibes. We will discuss that. We'll discuss what we've really seen versus what that really changes about a lot of the negativity that we had last episode. Then we'll hit the TDR cocktail break, and then we're going to go to premium message board questions. We don't have a ton this week, so should be a relatively quick and not so beefy episode 351 of the Door Report. We will see. But before we get into all that and much more, we are now a part of the On3 Publisher Network. Visit thedoreport.com today and subscribe to a monthly or annual premium membership and support TDR for access to premium content, as well as our premium message board behind closed doors. You can join right now for just $1, and you also get a complimentary year of The Athletic. So sign up for thedoreport.com today. Also, don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Door Report. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Our podcast is available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and Google Podcasts. And while you're at it, give our podcast 5 stars and review on iTunes or Spotify. It's now time for segment 1.
Touch money!
Welcome back into episode 351 of the Door Report, and welcome into segment 1. To start off, starting out with a little football talk. Not going straight into basketball. We're sticking with football. A little bit of news on the transfer portal front. Vanderbilt has one additional commitment, Michael Diata, a former Oklahoma State defensive lineman. However, he played a majority of his career at Virginia, his best year coming in 2024, where he totaled 29 tackles. Last year, he was hampered by injuries at Oklahoma State, only had 9 tackles, 6'5", 265-pound interior defensive lineman, hailing from Antioch, Tennessee. Cane Ridge High School, local guy here. To me, nothing more than a depth pickup. A solid depth pickup, but nothing more than a depth pickup. Am I missing anything there, Trevor?
No, I interpret it as a depth pickup as well.
Yep, that's it. That's why I said very brief, because that's all the news on the transfer portal as of right now. We'll see as names continue to trickle onto rosters across the country. Next up on the gridiron, Diego Pavia at the Panini Senior Bowl. I keep wanting to say the Reese Senior Bowl, but the Panini Senior Bowl now. Diego Pavia, the only Vanderbilt Commodore participating. His official height and weight was officially measured and weighed at the Senior Bowl. Diego Pavia came in at 5'9" and 7/8 inches, 198 pounds. On Vanderbilt's roster, he was listed at 6 foot, 207 pounds. A lot of discussion about that on social media. If you've listened to this podcast, those measurements, zero surprise from either me or Trevor. We've talked about that openly ever since we were allowed to attend camp or be next to Diego Pavia. This is not a secret. Everybody knew that.
We were talking about that like last year before we ever had access to any sort of behind the scenes stuff. Also, too, like I don't have much to add. He's balling out and he's doing well, doing really, really well. The clips are all over Twitter. In terms of the height thing, like I don't have anything to add. I don't care. People who are making a big fuss about it. This is so it's once again like the famous Inglorious Bastards meme to where they're in the pub and he mispronounces a word and the meme is just him there, or not the word.
It's not the word.
It's the hand sign.
Yeah,
it's the hand sign. He's
verse.
up there. He's up there with 3. Whenever somebody on football Twitter is like, "Oh my gosh, height measurements, lying. How could they do this?" Literally, I am the meme holding up 3 fingers like this because I'm like, you just don't follow football well, like very closely. Every single roster, guys' heights are bumped up
and guys' weights.
And guys' weights are bumped up like an inch or 2 or 3. Like this is not new. So if you're causing a big kerfluffle about this, you're holding up your 3 like this, and I know you're not a real ball watcher.
Yeah, and a lot of it is just to get clicks on social media and to make fun of Diego Pavia. And there's plenty of people that don't like Diego Pavia. If he would have measured in, here's my theory. I don't think it's a theory. If he would have measured in at 5'10", which is 1/8 of an inch taller, it would have still gotten a little bit of traction on social media, but would have been nothing what it is like currently. That 5'9" and 7/8 makes a hell of a graphic. I will say that. So that's been a lot of discussion. Everybody knew Diego Pavia was undersized. That's why I've said I'm not going to say the guy can't do it. I've said it repeatedly, though. I don't think he's an NFL quarterback. He's been doubted at every turn, but it's size. It's been size from the beginning is the issue with Diego Pavia, paired with not having a rocket of an arm. Has a good arm, not a great arm. And some of the other height comparisons were like Bryce Young, Kyler Murray, who I believe were 5'10" and 1/8. One of the two of those guys was. So it's not that different. It's 1/4 of an inch is the difference in those guys. But yeah, the height is going and has always impacted Diego Pavia's draft stock. That's not a new thing. I don't know how this was. Everybody inflates the heights. The NBA had a whole thing about it where they had to re-regulate heights. If you go back in the day in the NBA and look at Dwight Howard standing next to Kevin Garnett, Phoebe,
she's really interested with Kumar right now.
Kevin Garnett always famously refused to be measured anything other than sock height, or even he refused to even have socks on. So he was 6'11". Dwight Howard is listed at 7 foot. Those guys standing next to each other on the court, Kevin Garnett was clearly taller. It's been a thing everywhere. That's why they measure and verify the measurements at the draft and don't go off roster. That's why they do that. Because they know it's not accurate. But he has been making plays. You can watch Diego Pavia play in the Panini Senior Bowl on Saturday, January 31st at 1:30 p.m. Central Time on NFL Network. So everybody wondering out there where they can watch that, you can tune into that game before you tune into Vanderbilt's nighttime matchup on the road against Ole Miss this Saturday. So a day full of Vanderbilt athletics for everybody out there. Anything else on football you want to add on before we move on to the hardwood?
Nah, man, I'm ready for basketball talk.
All right, we're moving on to basketball talk. To start out, I know it's what you want to talk about, women's basketball. Women's basketball, Shea Ralph and the ladies lost their first game of the season to South Carolina. Number 5 Vanderbilt, number 2 South Carolina. Unfortunately, called a South Carolina team coming off a loss against Oklahoma. South Carolina, prior to that, had only lost to UConn this season, who is the number 1 team in the country. And unfortunately, you ran into a team that was just completely focused on making a statement. And Vanderbilt lost 103-74. But this Vanderbilt women's basketball team, we watched a good amount of that game at TDR headquarters. This Vanderbilt women's basketball team is very good. There is another level in women's basketball. There is a barrier to entry that I just don't even think exists in men's basketball and has never existed. South Carolina is on a different tier of physicality and athleticism than Vanderbilt, even though I do think Vanderbilt's a top 8, top 6 women's basketball team in the country. They just don't have the athletes and strength to match up against South Carolina and Dawn Staley.
Well, and you look at the pair, and I'm not going to act like I'm as knowledgeable on women's basketball and the landscape of women's basketball as I am whenever it comes to men's hoops. But whenever you look at just across the nation, across leagues, there's a lot of it seems like there's a lot of parity. There's a lot of parity until you get from number 3 to number 2. And then there's a ginormous gap. Dawn Staley in South Carolina and Gino and UConn are head and shoulders, probably more above everybody else in America, and sort of have been for a while. I know Kim Mulkey was up there for a little bit, but maybe she was a Angel Reese Merchant. Who knows? I think really what I think is fascinating is how bad Vanderbilt lost, but didn't drop it all in the AP. I think that goes to show that that game wasn't a knock on Vanderbilt by any means. I think the AP voters and maybe women's basketball voters actually watch the sport as opposed to every other AP voter-based sport. That wasn't a knock on Vanderbilt. They looked at that and they're like, yeah, this is just a South Carolina team with like 7 McDonald's All-Americans. Like, what can you do? They're going to do this to everybody not named UConn.
And then have the occasional screw-up game like they did against Oklahoma.
Yes.
But yeah, Vanderbilt basketball still rolling. I don't think it's cause for concern or anything, but there's still a gap between them, UConn and the UConns and South Carolinas of the world.
I will say last night, I don't know if anybody else noticed, I saw a lot of kids in Michaela Blake's NIL gear, and I thought that was really cool. Grow the game.
I got tickets. Shout out to the premium board member and TDR subscriber who hooked me up with the ticket. I was surrounded by Kentucky fans. I was in
You were in
enemy
F.
territory. I was in
Yeah.
section F. So good amount of Kentucky blue around me, but that was fun as Vanderbilt dominated that game. Moving on to men's basketball.
As you wear Kentucky blue.
I am. Shout out
wearing
Kentucky.
the coat of my enemy.
Yeah, the skin of my enemy.
fallen enemy.
Different tone around men's basketball than we had on last episode. Vanderbilt, of course, was number 15 in the AP poll heading into their matchup against Mississippi State on Saturday. Vanderbilt came out from the opening tip, dominated, jumped out to a 22-4 lead over Mississippi State. And an overused phrase, but overused because it's accurate. Vanderbilt never looked back. It was never a close game. Vanderbilt ended up winning 88-56. All SEC road games are sneaky. So coming out there and dominating by 30 points, incredible job. Coming off a 3-game skid, getting Vanderbilt back on the right track. There's a theme on how Vanderbilt won this game as well as the next matchup. We will talk about the Kentucky game. A slight edge in rebounding and a huge edge in turnovers and points off those turnovers. That's why Vanderbilt won these games. They were able to not be dominated on the glass against Mississippi State. They won the rebounding battle 36-34. In turnovers, Vanderbilt only turned the ball over 9 times, while Mississippi State turned it over 17. And points off those turnovers, Vanderbilt scored 28 points off turnovers. Mississippi State scored 10. Also in the Mississippi State game, Vanderbilt absolutely dominated in points in the paint. Vanderbilt scored 50 points in the paint to Mississippi State's 22. In the dominant loss that Vanderbilt experienced to John Calipari's Arkansas team, do you know what Vanderbilt's differential in points in the paint was?
I know it's a lot, but I don't know the exact number.
Arkansas outscored Vanderbilt exactly 50-22 in that game.
Wow.
The exact same number.
Wow.
So complete flip of the script in this Mississippi State game. And you could almost say the same thing for the Kentucky game. Basically, Kentucky came out cold. Vanderbilt didn't come out scorching hot, but Kentucky came out ice cold. Vanderbilt built up a lead early. We're up 21 points, I believe, going into halftime. And Kentucky never got it closer than 17 in the entire second half. I kept waiting for a Kentucky run to come. It never came. Kentucky struggled. They played really poorly, but Vanderbilt also played a really clean game of basketball. Very, 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 very similar to what I talked about in the Mississippi State game. Vanderbilt's slight edge in rebounding, 43-37. But where this game was won and lost was turnovers, and once again, points off the turnovers. Vanderbilt only turned the ball over 9 times. Kentucky turned it over 15. Vanderbilt capitalized with 28 points off those turnovers. Kentucky only scored 8. Vanderbilt also slightly won points in the paint. Again, 28-24. But I think this goes back to turnovers and capitalizing on those turnovers and then not being dominated in the rebounding category. So, Trevor, that's a very quick, broad view of what we saw over the last 2 games. What thoughts do you have on what we've seen?
Yeah. So I don't have anything from the Mississippi State game really, because here's how I view the Mississippi State game. I expected Vanderbilt to go in there and get a win against a poor Mississippi State team. And the way that I was looking at that game was almost like a slump buster, get right type game. And so what we saw in that Mississippi State game, I didn't think that you could take that information and then run and hypothesize what Vanderbilt was going to do in future games. But they kind of did, especially when you look at this Kentucky team. First off, you mentioned the rebounding, how Vanderbilt did on the glass. Going into this game, now Kentucky did have an injury to some players, but overall, this was a very, very, very tall. Go ahead.
I was going to say, so did Vanderbilt. Let's not forget that Duke Miles was out during the Kentucky game.
Right.
But continue.
Right. Yeah. I was just saying that because Kentucky had 3 out to Vanderbilt's 2, and then Frankie Collins. Can you even consider him at this point? But yeah, no, Vanderbilt also has their own injury issues. I'm sure we'll talk about Duke Miles and his prognosis and when he'll get back. Vanderbilt replicated what they did against Mississippi State on the glass in this Kentucky game. Offensive rebounding percentage, Vanderbilt was 35% on the offensive glass. That is their best offensive rebounding performance in conference play against a Kentucky team that overall is the 20th tallest team in the nation. For context, Vanderbilt is the 288th tallest team in the nation. So overall, man, one of the big criticisms that not just we have, but I know everybody else had about this Vanderbilt team as we got down the stretch of conference play was they had to figure out something whenever it comes to the glass. Overall, I know that if Duke Miles was healthy, that starting lineup would have been different. I really, really, really liked that lineup to where Vanderbilt went big to start the game. And that seemed to be their primary rotation as the game went on. I thought that was a fun lineup. It gave them results. It gave them results on the defensive end. It gave them results on the offensive end. But yeah, I mean, for me, I think you hit it on the head. Points off turnovers, won them the game. They played really, really good defense. I'm just very, very happy with their offensive rebounding percentage performance. Like I said, 35%. That's their best performance in conference play against a tall Kentucky team. So very pleased in that. Vanderbilt shot the lights pretty well. Effective field goal percentage of almost 50%. But really, I thought the main storyline of this game were players in particular, not a team performance as a whole, if that makes sense. Devin McLaughlin, man, didn't clean up the glass, but whenever he's in that role to where Jalen Washington is on the floor with him, and even AK is on the floor with him, I'm not sure if that's his primary role, but man, whenever it came to the offensive side of the ball, it seemed like Devin McLaughlin got his shot back. Now, I know it was just one game, but he was 3 for 4. Yeah, he was 3 for 4 from the three. Shot 75%. Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that's right. I don't have that written down. He was 3 of 4.
I'm pulling up the box score.
Okay. But yeah, nevertheless.
3 of 5.
3 of 5. My apologies. Nevertheless, Devin McLaughlin had a wonderful shooting night from beyond the 3-point line. If Devin McLaughlin can get his 3 back and become an efficient and confident 3-point shooter, I think that might be one of the best things that could happen to this Vanderbilt team. Because if you watch that Kentucky game, clearly they scouted him and correctly scouted him that he's just bricking everything. And they did not respect him when he was on the 3-point line, and he made him pay. And I think that was a really, really, really welcome sight. I got some additional guys, namely Washington and Bing, and some Kentucky stuff, if there's anything else. I think Tyler Tanner was definitely the MVP of the game. Just continue to see Tyler Tanner step into that star role. Overall, man, just on the defensive side, I know that this is a poor how we view Kentucky as sort of this fast-paced video game-like offense, especially with a Mark Pope offense. That is not what they have been this year. However, I think it's easy to say that Kentucky played poor and Vanderbilt just capitalized. However, I was looking at the stats, and I think that can be the case, but also, I don't think it tells the full story. So Kentucky shot an effective field goal percentage of 37.3. So they were shooting an effective field goal percentage of 37.3. That is their second worst shooting performance all season long and the worst in conference play. The only other time they shot worse than that was against Gonzaga whenever they were down here at Bridgestone. So could you say it was a poor shooting performance from Kentucky? Absolutely. But they've only been close to that one other time. So I would like to say, gold color glasses, maybe the Vanderbilt defense and Mark Byington just had a really, really good game plan. You knew going into this game that Kentucky was a poor 3-point shooting team. And they sort of made them camp out at the 3-point line and made them take those tough contested shots. And on the defensive side, whenever it came to getting boards, Vanderbilt did a great job and made them capitalize. So I thought going into this game, I thought Mark Byington, probably knowing that Duke Miles was going to be out, had a really, really good game plan. I thought his rotations were really good. And it's like you said as we were leaving Memorial last night, the rotations can only be good if the players are performing well. And I thought you got really, really good performances last night, especially that of Chandler Bing. I don't know, maybe we're seeing a Chandler Bing blossoming in front of our eyes.
Yeah, Chandler Bing has had his 2 best games as a Vanderbilt Commodore in the last 2 games, in the Mississippi State and the Kentucky game, and the best performance of his career by far was last night against Kentucky. Had a career-high 11 points, I believe. Also, Jaden Leverett gave some really good minutes off the bench, and I thought Mike James was really solid as well. Tyler Harris has really fallen out of favor in this rotation. He just has the yips. I don't know what it is on that shot. Something is wrong. He's not in the flow of this offense. But yeah, Bing, Leverett, and James were a huge reason that Vanderbilt won that game. And on top of that, you mentioned Glock. He deserves a huge shout out. That was the old Devin McLaughlin. That's what we've been missing a lot of this season. That's what we've been missing seeing. If he can get that jump shot working, I think right now he's shooting like 27.5% from the 3-point line. If he can get that up to low 30s, man, it adds a whole new element to this offense. So seeing Glock knock some down from outside was huge. Tyler Tanner continues to be a bona fide superstar. That also is a huge contributing factor to why this team is so good. Tyler Tanner's a superstar.
Speaking of Tyler Tanner, I want to ask you a question. What is a bigger surprise to you? The jump that Tyler Tanner has made, or, and I don't want to dog on him, how poor Tyler Harris has played compared to the expectation we had going into the season?
Tyler Harris has been the biggest surprise, way bigger. I kind of did see the Tyler Tanner jump, not to this extent, but I saw a jump happening for Tyler Tanner. We were talking about Tyler Harris as a guy that was going to be the secondary scorer on this team, or maybe even the primary scorer on this team. Probably the most proven guy, maybe outside of Duke Miles. A little argument there with Tyler Harris transferring in from Washington. He's, as much as Byington has hit on a lot of these transfers and guys coming in, at this point, I think it might be maybe a little too early to say, but we are about halfway through SEC play or close to it. Tyler Harris seems like a miss so far out of the transfer portal.
If you had to give a diagnosis for Harris, like, what is your best possible diagnosis? Is it just yips? It's like, is that like
slow and coming off flat. He's off rhythm on the jumper. It seems like he's shooting on the downward part of his jump, which is causing the shot to be flat and short. There's a reason the old phrase exists: shooter long, nothing wrong. Watch Tyler Harris's misses. It's a lot of short misses. Not shooting with confidence, and once that confidence goes, that's it. I mean, shooting a basketball is a weird thing. There's nothing in particular. You just got to get in rhythm. And the problem is those game speed shots are really hard to simulate outside of game.
Yeah. He's in, and I don't want to dog him because I think it's like we saw with Glock. It's easier for Glock to get back to shooting effective from three than it is for Tyler Harris to get his whole offensive game back. But you mentioned Chandler Bing, man. Also, Chandler Bing, I know he didn't have the most minutes, but he shot 67% effective field goal percentage. That was his best in conference play. So that just further goes to prove your point that Chandler Bing had his best game of the season. I really, really hope that we're seeing a Chandler Bing blossoming in front of our eyes.
I mean, I think Chandler Bing's athleticism, his strength, his build as a freshman are all phenomenal. I will say the fact that Bing shot 2 of 4 from 3, that might be fool's gold. I don't think Bing
that's
is
possible. Yeah.
His 2 misses were hideous misses, and when he misses, it's bad. But Bing's playing so much better. I mean, his offensive game is going to need a full off season to develop and improve. But I think there was something on the TV broadcast that the guy reps or pushes 275 on bench for reps.
I saw that on Twitter. No disrespect to Chandler Bing, I do not believe that.
He's built, man. Like, I can see why Byington likes him as a freshman. He's just raw offensively. Yeah. And so I think Bing is starting to play better. He's getting adjusted to the speed. I saw some confidence in ball handling, splitting a double in some of Kentucky's full court pressure. But there's still going to be moments. There's going to be games like we've seen the last couple of games where Bing, you're going to have a really positive feeling. And there are going to be games later in the season where you're like, get him off the court. Yeah. And that's just the story of having a freshman on the floor that's not a 5-star. Yeah. That is what it is.
Progress isn't linear. I will say he needs to get better at the charity stripe.
Man,
especially with the rate that he gets fouled at, he's got to get better.
He pulled 5 boards, but man, it does feel like you're feeling lucky when he comes off the stripe and hits 1 or 2. I mean, that feels like the maximum that you're going to get out of Bing from the free throw line. But Bing getting better and improving his performance, especially with Duke Miles out with the injury for the next 2 to 3 weeks, is having surgery, cleaning some stuff up in his knee. Byington said is going to be out 2 to 3 weeks. Vanderbilt, of course, coming up after this Saturday has the quote-unquote bye week for the midweek game coming up. So hopefully not too many actual games missed from Duke Miles, but you never know with those clean-up knee surgeries.
Yeah.
Right now, not expected to be out for too extended of a period, but you're going to need to see Bing step up in the next, 4, 5, 6 games, however long Duke Miles is out.
And Mike James is my guy, but you're going to need to see more offense out of Mike James. I thought last night was certainly a good step forward, but like Bing, Mike James, I mean, dear God, if Tyler Harris could put it together, or at least have like one game to where he puts up 12 points.
And I've gone on this rant before, I just have to go on it again briefly, is with Duke Miles out, it didn't come to bite him against Kentucky just because Tyler Tanner played, I believe, 37 minutes. He's on the court constantly. But not having 2 of Vanderbilt's 3 primary ball handlers are not playing right now with injury, Frankie Collins and Duke Miles. That puts huge pressure on this Vanderbilt offense. I mean, I know they have guys like A.K. Okeraki's okay bringing the ball up the court. Chandler Bing's okay bringing the ball up the court. They have plenty of guys that are okay doing that. But as far as real primary ball handlers are concerned, you're going to see Vanderbilt hit moments with this offense where they struggle because it's one thing if you have Duke Miles just out and you have Frankie Collins you can bring in. Oh, you lose a little bit of offensive production, but you only have one guy that's a true ball handler that's active and playing. Vanderbilt's going to run into issues with that. You're going to need to see guys like Chandler Bing really step up in that aspect. Otherwise, you're going to have to see Dean Vines on the court. And I don't think he's a great ball handler right now as a freshman.
No.
So the Duke Miles injury going to be out the next 2 to 3 weeks, but coming up for Vanderbilt basketball this Saturday on the 31st, we already talked about the Panini Senior Bowl with Diego Pavia at 1:30 p.m. Central Time on NFL Network. Vanderbilt plays this Saturday at Ole Miss at 7:30 p.m. on SEC Network. The current SEC standings, let me find those because I wanted to read those off because we are getting a little bit deeper. Why can I not find the SEC standings? Whatever. 1 second.
ESPN's like user interface is so bad. And it's while you're looking that up, we'll go on a brief tangent. The worldwide leader in sports, they were the first to develop on-demand sports streaming. Their app and their platform has been bad since it was rolled out. It is still the worst there is. They were the first to have a website with all of these statistics and games and times and all that. It was awful then. It is still the worst now. I don't know. I have a personal beef with ESPN and their user face on just about every platform.
The number one issue is the ESPN app in the streaming. It's awful.
Yes.
And being bought by Disney for whatever reason. And how long ago was ESPN bought by Disney? That was a long time ago.
That was I'm not making this up. Was that like 15, 20 years ago?
Oh, way long. So they bought a 20% share in 96. I didn't know it was that long ago. Whatever.
Yeah.
Disney also bought Hulu. And since then, I've been a Hulu subscriber. When did Disney buy Hulu? I got to do another Google.
That I don't know. That I thought we weren't supposed to have.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So Disney is fully merging with Hulu in 2026. So that's been the more recent transaction. Yeah. So I've been a Hulu subscriber for a long time. Hulu Live TV, back when it used to be a great deal and you could cut the cord and for $60 a month, you could have everything you wanted. I've been a Hulu customer since then. Since Disney has bought Hulu, literally nothing has gotten better with the app. Hulu was getting slowly, incrementally better as a streaming app with live television until Disney bought it. And then it has plateaued / gotten worse. I don't know who is in charge of ESPN's streaming platform, app development, whoever it is, fire them. Get rid of them. They're horrible. The Disney, whatever it is, the Disney Plus app is also horrible.
Yes.
I don't understand how it's so bad. There are streaming services that are doing fantastic jobs. How is it that Disney sucks so bad at what they're doing developing this? But I do have the standings pulled up now.
Yeah.
And I've lost it in my 10 million tabs. But Vanderbilt currently tied for 4th, really sitting at 4th since they are tied with Kentucky, both at 5-3 in conference. For context, Ole Miss right now is sitting at 3-4, 11-9. Right now, Vanderbilt is 12th in KenPom, 18th in the AP poll. Ole Miss, of course, not ranked in the AP poll, currently sitting at number 73 in KenPom. Overall, it's a road SEC game. You can never take road SEC games for granted, Trevor. I'm assuming you're going to be doing a full preview.
Yes.
So if you want a full deep analytics breakdown from Trevor Hulan, check out the YouTube channel, subscribe to the Door Report on YouTube. You'll see that from Trevor. But overall, nothing about this Ole Miss team is scary. They're not extremely tall. They're not extremely efficient on offense. They're not extremely good on defense. That doesn't mean Vanderbilt can't lose to Ole Miss on the road. That doesn't mean that at all. But this is the beginning of what would I call it? Maybe a cool down of difficulty of Vanderbilt's
a decline in intensity.
Yeah, it's not easy. Vanderbilt could very easily any road game in the SEC. Vanderbilt can easily go out and lose, but Vanderbilt goes on the road against Ole Miss. There's nothing about them that's a scary team. Vanderbilt, I would guess, even on the road, is going to be a 6 to 7 point favorite. Jesus Christ, don't do that. It's somewhere in there. Then they play Oklahoma at home, then travel on the road against Auburn, who's actually, I believe, a top 35 Ken Pom team, so that's a bit of a challenge. Then they're on the road against Texas A&M, then travel to Missouri, then at home against Tennessee. That's not an easy stretch. There aren't easy stretches in conference play, but that's a much easier stretch than they previously faced against Texas, Florida, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Kentucky.
Yeah.
We'll see how it works out. Duke Miles being out is a huge, huge factor in all that. I know they just blew out Kentucky. I know that happened. I don't want that to take the emphasis off of how big of a loss Duke Miles is for the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
I just when/if Vanderbilt comes out and struggles against Ole Miss, Oklahoma, Auburn, Texas A&M without Duke Miles, don't let that come as a shock just because they blew out Kentucky.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to get out there.
Yeah. Is it a little too early for a little bracket talk? I don't have much, but I just want to make note on bracket matrix as of right now. Vanderbilt's a 4 seed. 77 points away from being a 3 seed. So they're right in the thick of it for a 3 seed. So Vanderbilt has a chance to capitalize.
It's the latest bracketology. Before we go to the TDR cocktail break and hit premium message board questions, I do want to ask you one question. And it's also a bit of a statement for me, but also a question to you because I'm genuinely curious your thoughts. Last episode, I specifically said this team does have a ceiling. There's one thing if your team's going through a shooting slump, whatever it is, but this Vanderbilt's team's issues are its size, its athleticism, its physicality on the inside, and the depth of that size and physicality. I don't think that has changed. Nothing about what I've seen the last 2 games have altered my perspective on we were riding a fantasy land, whatever you want to call it, ride when Vanderbilt was sitting undefeated at 16-0. Now reality is set in. I think that they've fully relieved me of the full panic button press. They're not going to fall apart. This is still a damn good basketball team. Nothing was fluky about starting 16-0. But this team still has problems. And I don't want Vanderbilt fans to lose sight of that. Maybe I do want them to lose sight of it a little bit. But just because they've won 2 conference games by 25 to 30 points back to back, that doesn't absolve these issues. These issues are still going to come back into play sooner rather than later of size and rebounding. And there's going to be a performance that's frustrating. So have the last 2 games relieved you of those concerns? Or are you still sitting here with basically the same concerns we had last episode, even though you're coming off a 2-game win streak versus a 3-game skid? I hope that wasn't too complicated.
No, same concerns. So, like, size is size. And at this, it's one thing. So, like, throughout the rest of the season, Chandler Bing, hypothetically, can get better at shooting free throws. Throughout the rest of this season, Devin McLaughlin can become a better 3-point shooter, hypothetically speaking. Devin McLaughlin cannot grow 2 inches between now and tournament time. Jalen Washington cannot grow an inch between now and tournament time. Like, those concerns are cemented.
I would say Vanderbilt can't add another big man, but wait.
Well, that is now that you say that, maybe add a little asterisk to what I just said. But I'm with you. Those concerns are cemented. I will say, though, in terms of like the fantasy land, like if this team was to finish 3, 4, or 5 seed, is that still? It's not a 2. Don't get me wrong. It's not a 1, but is that still not like a holy shit, what an overachieving.
It's a huge success.
You know what I mean? So, like, I'm not going to lie. Whenever people are like, man, they got to hope they can get a 5 or a 4 seed. I'm like, what do you mean they have to hope? Like, the way that statement is painted to me feels like it's said from a place of like they're underachieving if they get a 4 or a 5 seed. They're underachieving if they get a 6 seed. And like, whenever I hear people say that, like, that doesn't sit well with me. Like, that bothers me. But no, to answer your question, I agree. Like, these past 2 results don't change the concerns that I have about this team. But like what I said, what does give me hope is Devin McLaughlin can get better from 3. Chandler Bing hopefully can get better from the free throw line. But like your real concerns, those aren't going anywhere. You can't get more athletic. You can't get bigger in the middle of the season. Like, it is what it is. You got to bite the bullet. You got to white knuckle it. And you just got to somehow figure out a way to get through it.
Yeah, and what you hit on is, we talked about it last episode, moving the goalposts. That's often said when a coach is on the verge of being fired, is we're moving the goalposts. And that's often talked about, and moving the goalposts in a way that is lowering expectations. I think what's happening with Vanderbilt basketball is the opposite of that. Expectations in the goalpost has been moved in the other direction of raising expectations. Going into this year, if you would have told Vanderbilt fans on a large scale that Vanderbilt would be a 7 or an 8 seed this season, Vanderbilt fans in general would have been happy with that. That would have been a step forward. Vanderbilt was a 10 seed last year. You're going to be the favorite or the higher seed at minimum in your first matchup of the NCAA tournament. This is a huge leap forward. And the fact that, like you're saying, where that's being framed as they're going to struggle to be a 5 seed, it's like that's a huge achievement in and of itself compared to preseason expectations. Yeah. So I think that's a good point. That just, it was awesome starting 16-0.
Yes.
That was incredible. Reality is set in. Reality setting in doesn't mean, oh shit, this team's just not any good. No, this is a really good basketball team that for a second we saw a glimpse of a team that you thought could truly make a run and be a true contender. I don't think that is the case, but they're still better than they were last year by a decent margin, especially if you can get this roster fully healthy.
Yeah.
That's also a key. Is if Vanderbilt can be fully healthy come tournament time, that's a team nobody's going to want to face.
Yeah.
As a 5 or a 6 or a 4 seed, whatever it is.
And this will be the last thing I say before we move on to the next point. Like, just to put it in like a broader historical context, Kevin Stallings' best seed ever was a 4 seed. Kevin Stallings, who like we hold in very, very high regards, and rightfully so, his best seed ever was a 4 seed. If Mark Byington this year was a 4 seed, I mean, oh my God. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Let's pump. I think it's pumping the brakes on both sides. Let's pump the brakes on this team being a national title contender. Let's also pump the brakes on this season being disappointing in any capacity.
Yes.
I don't think either of those are true. And in fact, I think you're closer to being a national title contender than you are closer to being a disappointment of a season. Nothing about this season has been disappointing so far.
No.
At all. All right, that is it for basketball. We will have another episode before Vanderbilt's next matchup. Normally, we would have 2 games coming up to look forward to, but Vanderbilt does have that bye week, much needed bye week.
Comes at a really, really good time.
So we will be discussing the game they have the following Saturday on the 7th of February against Oklahoma at home next episode. That game's at 2:30 p.m. on SEC Network. Anything else you want to add here on basketball before we head to the TDR cocktail break and go to premium message board questions?
Yeah, one stat that I did forget. Vanderbilt held Kentucky to a season low in points per possession. That's it. Also the biggest margin of victory by Vanderbilt over Kentucky since, I believe, 2008 as well. And to this point in the season, the best start in Vanderbilt basketball history since the 72-73 season. Great pull. Shout out to Tommy, my dad. All right, everybody out there, grab yourself a delicious, hot, and I usually say or cold, but I would really recommend a hot beverage during this TDR cocktail break. We'll be right back after the TDR cocktail break.
Welcome back from the TDR cocktail break, and welcome into segment 2 of episode 351. All we have in segment 2 is premium message board questions, and I will say this is the least premium message board questions we have ever had. I do want to probably add that most people are a little distracted by the horrible weather that we have had recently in Nashville, and everybody that is experiencing power outages and other issues like that. Hope everybody's staying safe out there. It's brutal. What's going on in Nashville? Trees are falling down all around us. Our pets' heads are falling off. There's just all sorts of stuff like that going on. I do want to say, we forgot to mention it in segment 1, the crowd against Kentucky, I was pretty impressed with.
I was too.
I saw some people on the message board criticizing the crowd. I was like, man, we're not talking about it like it was raining outside. Like, we were walking to the stadium. We went, what was the name of the place we went to before?
The local.
And we were walking over to Memorial from there, and it was just ice, like on the sidewalks. Like, if you were an older person, there's no way you could even actually get to the game. Like, unless you had somebody drop you off at the front door. So I thought the crowd was solid.
Yeah, not to mention 100,000 people in Nashville still don't have power.
Good job, NES.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Taking them taxpayer dollars.
They're the best.
Yeah. All my homies hate NES.
But I will say, shout out to NES. We did not lose power here, probably because we are located pretty close to a water treatment facility.
My dad was telling me, he was like, maybe the big blessing is that they built that water treatment facility. And I was like,
well, that's been there for a while. They just redid it. I was doing some research. They're just redoing the front of it.
Really?
Supposedly.
I was going to say that was not there when we moved in.
There was something there. They're just redoing the front. I could be wrong on that. We need to do some research into that. But we did not lose power at TDR headquarters, so I'm counting my blessings.
Yes.
I will say the downside of my day job, I work fully remote for a company completely out of the state on the West Coast. Nothing was different. The world was falling apart in Nashville on Monday, and it was like 48 degrees where they were, and they had no idea. And as long as I had internet, it didn't matter. So nothing against the company. It's just that's the one downside of working fully remote is everybody else is like, oh, we're working remote today and we're barely doing anything. Everybody's dealing with it now. It's like my day is just completely normal. Nothing changed. All right, let's dive into these premium message board questions. First up from poor Vandy fan 615. Well, this is actually about the Kentucky game. So never mind. He said it feels like moving the game to Wednesday is a no-brainer. I put this up on Monday before we knew if the game was going to be moved. All right, next one. From World's Strongest Vandy Fan. Hypothetically, in instances of extreme starvation and last resorts, who gets eaten first? Trevor. Lots of muscle and meat. Will. A little stringy, but the wet blanket mentality would make a dark winter even more miserable. Miller. Much more stringy, but knows how to cook. Or Phoebe, ... Or does it go to Lord of the Flies with each claiming a room and fighting for resources? Discuss. So
I think we have to take out Miller.
I'm pretty sure there's not a lot of meat on those bones, but I think we're going to eat Miller.
I wish y'all could see Miller's face right now.
He's just eating a pint of Ben and Jerry's over on the couch. It's like, you're going to, fatten yourself up for us.
Yeah, we're coming for you.
We're coming for you. Eat that ice cream, boy.
Yeah, cook you nice and slow.
Phoebe's not going to provide much meat.
Also, I would defend Phoebe till my last dying breath. Here's another thing. So I don't know if you know this. I also don't know if this is true or not. But whenever people die and they have pets in their homes, apparently dogs will starve themselves and like die with their owners. Cats, as soon as you're dead and like they run out of food, they're like, I got to eat something. They'll start consuming their owner and be like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. Dude, if I died and nobody knew I was dead in this house, I would want Phoebe. Yes, as she appears, I would want Phoebe to eat me. I'm dead. What do I need this bag of flesh for anyways? I would want nothing more than my cat to survive. Yes, little one. If I died, please consume me to survive.
So I think this turns into a bit of a Lord of the Flies situation, if we're being honest. It's similar to the conversation of you don't have to be faster than the bear. You just have to be faster than the slowest person. So I think that's where this house comes into play. I'm going to be honest. I'm not overpowering Trevor and cooking him over an open flame. I think I am overpowering Miller. So I'm thinking Miller's got a height and reach advantage. I've got a weight advantage. Unfortunately, whether he volunteers himself or not, which Miller's a very selfless man.
I think Miller would volunteer himself.
I think he's
shaking his head. And also too,
there's nothing he desires more than to be cooked on a Blackstone grill.
That is true.
That would be the true circle of life.
That is true.
For Chef Miller.
Also, we have to discuss the floor plan. Will and I live right next to each other. Miller is isolated by himself. Will and I are on the 3rd floor. Miller is on the 1st floor. Miller does have access to the front door, but if we're iced in, he can't escape. We can bottleneck Miller.
You're in trouble, pal.
Yeah. I think also, do you have any weapons in your bedroom? He shrugged. He shrugged. That's smart, Miller. That's smart.
All right. World's Strongest Vandy fan goes on that serious question / comment now. Let the kids cook. Everett and
Miller.
Bing grew.
Let the kids cook Miller.
Let the kids cook Miller. Everett and Bing grew up versus Kentucky. Let's freaking go. Vandy went big versus big. Glock, Bing, Washington, Harris, AK, and UK didn't want it. Great coaching job by Mark Byington to still be effective when Tyler Tanner needed a rest. Also, to quote, It's a Wonderful Life, quote, every time big media complains about Memorial, Vandy gets another 3, end quote.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I totally agree. I thought what Byington did with those rotations was sensational.
And then he added in the tweet, which we didn't bring up initially.
Dan Wolken.
Dan Wolken. I mean,
Vandy alum. Let's add Vandy alum Dan Wolken.
Look, I generally the only time I'm not going to judge a guy only by when he pops up on my timeline, because every time that I see Dan Wolken, it's one of the dumbest fucking things I've ever seen in my life. Every time, but I don't follow Dan Wolken, so I'm sure he has 95% of his takes are just normal and they don't reach my feed.
Brother, as somebody who has followed Dan Wolken for 10 plus years, no, they're all like that.
Okay. Somebody said what a goofy arena. Benches on the end lines is criminal. And this person
end lines.
Yeah, end lines, another Inglorious Bastards. This guy, Matt Norlander, quoted and said, having seen it up close now, I love the benches on the baselines. College hoops is great in part because of the character of its gyms, barns, arenas, and field houses. Vandy is one of one. Dan Wolken replied and said, people at Vandy have complicated feelings about that building, but they should do whatever they can to extend its life. I just have to add, like, immediately wrong. Like, even if I think later he had a tweet that was talking about, yeah, but you're not the person that has to do upkeep and maintenance on that building and da-da-da-da. I'm like, dude, if they tore down Memorial, there's dozens of us, the Vanderbilt fans. That would be the end of Vanderbilt basketball's fandom. There would legitimately be people protesting outside of McGugin. That is the one thing of all the things of Vanderbilt athletics that is held sacred by this fan base is Memorial Gym.
Yes.
And you can talk as much shit about the baselines, about all of its faults, make it the beauty that it is.
Yes.
That's why it is beautiful. Dan Wolken is wrong.
Yeah.
He's wrong. Maybe if you talk to the dude that's on salary doing maintenance and different things, he might have a different opinion. You're wrong. There are not mixed feelings.
No.
99.9999999 extended % of people, affiliated, associated fans, people in the admin, maintenance people, fucking workers and ushers love Memorial Gym. That's a dumb take.
Yeah.
If Memorial Gym goes down, I'm going down with it.
Yeah.
I'm similar to like climate protesters. I'm gluing myself to Memorial. It's not coming down.
Oh, dude, I will break in a Memorial and I will handcuff myself to the wooden benches of Section 2L Row 5. And in order to get those benches out, you're going to have to take me out too. And it's also like I tweeted this in response to him, like, oh, you're not the person that has to like keep up with it, yada, yada, yada. Let's look at it this way. Vanderbilt has had an historic amount of money poured into First Bank Stadium, the Hawk, and Jess Neely. Where have they not done anything other than add AC for volleyball? Memorial Gym. Now, I wonder.
The upgrades they have done have been fantastic.
Yes, now like the jumbotrons,
the
screens,
boards, and the corners.
Yes,
Yeah.
but like in terms of like actually changing the dimensions, they haven't touched that place. I wonder why. Maybe because the people at the very top who are controlling the money also agree with the fans in that this place is perfect and it's sacred. And like I said, don't change the damn bathrooms.
Nope.
Don't change the checkered tile. Don't change anything. I swear to God, so help me God, if they ever took out the wooden bleachers and put in premium seating, I would do some really bad things.
And there are different portions of this. The actual setup of Memorial and the general feeling inside Memorial is truly special. There's a reason, and until Vanderbilt has had the Bryce and Jerry Stackhouse eras, which were bad. Until then, it was like universally Memorial Gym was on a top 10 bucket list location for college basketball fans.
Yes, they were like Fog, Allen Arena, Memorial Gym.
Yeah, like it's a dumb take. It's an uninformed take. It is what it is. Memorial Gym is incredible. It is a religious experience to go there as a college basketball fan. And there's nothing. The reason that Vanderbilt fans are like, there's nothing else. And to be honest, there's nothing else in Vanderbilt sports that's like that at all. I love First Bank. It's not like that. It's not a great stadium. I love the Hawk. Mm-hmm. It's not. It doesn't have historical significance. It's not this unique, incredible. It's a very cool setup with how it's next to the football stadium, and you're right in the middle of downtown, and that's awesome. It's not like Memorial. Memorial should remain untouched. That is a historical site of sports. It should be treated as a religious monument.
Not only, and somebody else brought this up, and I thought this was a good point to think about. Not only is it a historical site for Vanderbilt athletics, it is a historical site for the state of Tennessee.
Yep.
There's a fucking historical marker outside Memorial. So, like, also, I don't know the parameters or, like, how you go about that. But like, if it's a historical marker deemed by the state of Tennessee, I don't think you can just go in and change it willy-nilly. I'm just
They should. They won't. We have there is one thing I'm confident about. Vanderbilt has a solid AD right now, and I mean that.
Also, who played at Memorial?
I mean that in the way of a solid AD with a solid understanding of Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
And I'm very confident Candace Storley's not going to fuck that up.
No.
All right, next up, we have pessimistic door. Vibe check. What percentage do you give it that Byington is our coach next year after the losing streak? Okay, I don't think they're saying in a negative way like being fired. I think they're saying after the losing streak.
Does that dampen his chances?
Or not even chances. Does that just decrease the interest overall? Because we did talk about that a couple episodes ago. I don't think Byington was necessarily going anywhere after this season. Regardless, maybe there would have been some interest. But yeah, I think the slight struggle that you've seen in the clear issue within what Byington has achieved so far, which is he's been fantastic. He's clearly struggled to get legit size in the paint and athleticism within his scheme. I think that's going to give a pause to the level of program that would have the ability to poach him away. Because Vanderbilt football or Vanderbilt basketball is a way more desirable job than Vanderbilt football. You're not just going to have another high major program or another random high major program just poach Byington. It's going to have to be an elite program, poach Byington. And I just think right now, we'll see. But yeah, I would say if anything that helped the chances pretty heavily of him being the coach next season.
Yeah. Also, too, I don't think Byington leaves this offseason. I know you said you think he leaves this offseason. I'm not sure he leaves this offseason.
No, I don't think he does.
Oh, did I? I thought you. Oh.
No. I don't think. Maybe I missaid something. No, I don't think Byington leaves this offseason. I never thought he was leaving this offseason.
Oh.
No,
I thought you said at one point you're like, he's not going to be here next year.
No. I was saying that there's a good chance that he has a lot of interest from outside programs.
Oh, he's 100% goal. Yeah, buckle up.
But I mean, if he would have really, like, there is a chance that if he would have had one of those seasons where he's like 32-4 or something, or 33-3, which still is possible.
Yeah.
Technically. But if he had one of those seasons, then it could be immediate of like, Vanderbilt might actually lose him
Okay.
immediately
My bad.
versus if he just comes out and has like, even if it is like a 26-7 year or 26-8 or 27-7, I don't think that draws the attention from those super top tier programs. We'll see because it's you're not going to get your coach stolen by. I'm trying to think of a great example right now. You're not going to get your coach stolen by Ole Miss in basketball. Like Vanderbilt's a better basketball program than Ole Miss in every single metric. Like in football, that's a possibility. Auburn is not going to steal your head coach in basketball. In football, that's a chance. Like you're going to have to get your coach stolen by UNC or Virginia or Kentucky. It's a little bit different level. So Mark Byington's going to have to show extreme success. But he's still going to be a name that gets brought up for sure.
I don't want to bring back the memories of Jerry Stackhouse, but after 2 years, do you give Byington an extension this offseason? After just 2 years.
Well,
people are going to be like, oh my God, they did it with Jerry Stackhouse. But like,
Byington's success is so different than Jerry Stackhouse's success.
Yeah.
If you can, yes. The other thing is the programs that are going to be seeking to poach him, that's not going to matter.
They would just pay the buyout.
Yeah, that's not going to matter. I mean, it can protect you in some aspect, but yes, that would be great to see. But I don't think that would do anything for me as far as concerns because the programs that are going to poach him are not. That's not going to be a concern. It's going to be a Kentucky. It's going to be a UNC. It's going to be one of those top tier programs that just have money to burn.
Yeah.
All right. Next up from Logan D. Shaw, baseball related. Skip if you'd like. We're not going to skip.
No, Logan's the homie.
Especially when we have very few premium message board questions. Also, shout out Logan. Thank you for the question. But with the construction at Hawkins Field, making it an even smaller venue than other host sites, it's making it smaller in dimension, not in seating. Correct me if I'm wrong there.
Yeah, no, that's what he's referring to.
Okay.
Yeah.
If Vanderbilt was fortunate to host this year, how interested would you all be in moving those games to First Horizon Park? I think there's some overlap with the sounds for regionals, but they could always schedule around them if it works for ESPN. I don't like that. You might be different because baseball might be different. I am vehemently opposed to moving games off campus. Ever. It doesn't matter if and basketball is different with like the tournaments that they have, like in the Battle for Atlantis and stuff. That's different than what I'm talking about. I don't like neutral site college football games. I despise them. If Vanderbilt was presented with the option to have a matchup at Nissan or Nissan Stadium, no, I don't like that. I think games should be played on the campus. You earned home field advantage. You should get to play on your home field. Why would Vanderbilt ever agree to that? What would be the benefit of that for them? Just genuine curiosity. A slight bump up in ticket sales.
That's an interesting thought. I would say no, because I'm with you. I don't like off-campus games, and I think a home field, even though it's, and in this aspect, he also might be referring to, I might have just misinterpreted the question. The dimensions of the stadium are smaller, of the ballpark are smaller. Also does not hold nearly as many people as other SEC baseball stadiums.
It's small.
Regardless, I think that does still give you that home field advantage that you fought real hard for. I think in terms of the dimension too, of the new dimensions of the Hawk versus First Horizon, I think that also it obviously puts your pitchers at a disadvantage. However, whenever you look at somebody like Braden Holcomb with that short porch in right field now, that's a huge advantage for Vanderbilt, especially whenever I personally have been clamoring for more home run power. So I would say no.
Do you know what the capacity is going to be expanded to? Because I know right now it's like 37 or 3,800, but they're adding additional seating capacity.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm just very, very opposed to games moving off of campus. I don't like, my take doesn't really need extended talks on that. I think that makes sense to sports fans. I mean, maybe they could make more money off ticket revenue, but is that worth giving up your home field advantage? I don't think so.
No, yeah, I'm there with you.
All right, what do we got?
That is interesting, though.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. I just had never thought of that. But for the same reason I was so against, because there was legitimate talk about Vanderbilt demolishing Vanderbilt Stadium at the time and jointly building a stadium with Nashville SC that would be utilized in Geodis Park by both. I was so opposed to that.
Yeah.
Like, dear God, please no. Like, that would be the end of my Vanderbilt fandom. Thank God they didn't do that, because look at what First Bank is now.
Yeah.
Next up, from Kodak Black and Gold, always with some good questions.
Yep.
Would you rather be snowed in with Derek Mason, Jerry Stackhouse, or Bryce Drew? So I would say, so funny enough, my ex actually is family friends with Bryce Drew's family. I'm going to actually say Derek Mason. I would say Bryce Drew initially. I think me and Bryce Drew would get along really well for 24 to 48 hours, and I would eventually get really angry at Bryce Drew when he continued to speak in a very soft-spoken voice and soft-clapped.
And yeah, I was going to say clapped. Yeah.
Derek Mason, I feel like I could get along with Derek Mason.
Yeah.
I don't feel like he's the football coach that I want. I feel like me and Derek Mason could get along. Derek Mason seems like a good dude. Me and Jerry Stackhouse, he's number 3 by a long shot on that list. I mean, it would be cool to be there with Jerry Stackhouse. I don't think me and Jerry Stackhouse would have a lot to talk about, to be honest.
I'm also going to go Derek Mason. I think that because too, I'm really looking at it from a point of personality. No, I have heard, in terms of his personality and who he is as a human being, I've heard nothing but glowing things about who Derek Mason is as a human being. So Derek Mason is easy number 1. Jerry Stackhouse, however, I truly think is a bad person whenever it comes to his morals. I think we would disagree on our view of life, our view of morality. I also, and I think I would get to the point to where I would want to fight Jerry Stackhouse. And given his track record, I think that would bode very poorly for me. Bryce Drew, Bryce Drew would do that soft clap, and I think I'd throw myself over the balcony.
There would be an attempt at some point in the snow-in of somebody talking about the success Bryce Drew has had at Grand Canyon, and that would get brought up.
Bryce Drew would bring up Grand Canyon one time, and I would bash my head on this countertop.
That's exactly why I'm choosing Derek Mason over Bryce Drew, because of course you can have success at Grand Canyon. You're competing with an inordinately larger amount of resources than anyone else in your conference. If you don't have success at Grand Canyon, you're a fucking horrible coach. You should. Just like you should have success at Valparaiso. If you don't have success at Valparaiso, you're a miserable failure as a coach. You have more resources and more name recognition than everyone else in your conference. Bryce Drew is a great mid-major basketball head coach. He was a horrible basketball coach at Vanderbilt. Completely banked his entire coaching career on one player with no backup plan. That's not a good coach.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. I also too just think that like Derek Mason, if like we were all down here in the living room and we're like, he'd be like, you guys just like want to watch ball?
I feel like I could get along with Derek Mason.
I feel like I could be really good friends with Derek Mason.
Nothing about Derek Mason's tenure or the end of his tenure was me disliking Derek Mason as a human being. I thought he made some dumb decisions on the field and had some dumb quotes in press conferences. But nothing about Derek Mason. No Vanderbilt fan was like, screw that Derek Mason guy. I hate him.
No.
Nobody was like that.
And it's so funny, and this will be the last thing I say about Mason, is if they'd have fired him after the 2019 season, we would all look back at Derek Mason and be like, wow, like what a wonderful like coach, what a wonderful bridge between the turmoil that James Franklin left us in and now where we're at with Clark Lee. Like we would look back on Derek Mason and be like, man, thank you, Derek Mason.
Stayed a year too long.
Yeah.
Next up from Unabridged. You're snowed in for a week, and the only thing you have to for entertainment is a DVD showing every game of a Vandy basketball season. Which season do you pick? 2012, 2013. SEC championship here. Or was that 2011?
I was going to say it's 2011, 2012, and that is
bad.
Also my pick. That is also my pick.
That season was fantastic. I still remember watching the SEC championship game against Kentucky. That's my pick.
Yep.
And maybe you could go to, what was it? Shane Foster's senior year.
Yeah.
03, 04. Or was it 0405?
No, Shane Foster was like 07,
Oh,
08.
God, I'm terrible. Yeah, you're right. You were so right.
That would be runner-up for me, though.
Yeah,
but
07, 08 was Shane Foster senior night. My complete apology.
But here's the issue with that is all of those 2 seasons end in the most gut-wrenching fashion. And
Yeah.
I don't know if I could live through that again.
That is, but all of them end in relatively gut-wrenching fashion in some way.
That is so true.
I mean,
could we add a
was Shane Foster senior year Siena? What year did they lose to, or am I completely making that up?
I thought his was Murray State.
Yeah, maybe it was Murray State. What year was Siena?
It was okay. Was it Siena?
Siena was Siena beat Vanderbilt as a 4 seed 83-62 in 2008. Yeah, so that was that was Ogilvy. Maybe
AJ. Hey, dude, it's been over 10 years. I still hate AJ Ogilvy.
Yeah, Ogilvy was the leading scorer in that game with 18. Foster had 13 in that game, so it was Siena. God. I don't know how in the world my brain remembered that, but my brain also said that Shane Foster's senior year was 03-04.
It's late in the day.
But I remembered who his final game was against. That goes into the brain that,
AJ Ogilvy is one of, if not the best, what ifs in Vanderbilt basketball. In Vanderbilt athletics history on like what if he came back for that next season.
His jersey's up in my closet right now.
I had an AJ Ogilvy jersey when I was younger.
But I bought it off somebody at a fraternity party years ago. Not an actual Ogilvy jersey. This is before you could actually have the name. It's just number 4.
Yeah.
It's clearly AJ Ogilvy.
I had an AJ Ogilvy and I had a gold 44 Jeff Taylor jersey.
All right. We got another question here and we only have 2 more. From GLH for VU. Assuming that Miles is out 2 to 3 weeks, this seems like the best possible time for the surgery. Playing Ole Miss on Saturday and then no midweek game. Do you think he was trying to push through an injury and it finally wasn't working, or was maybe told, if you can get to this point, get the surgery and be back in 2 weeks, it'll be best for everyone?
I think the latter.
I think maybe a combo of those. Is he was hoping to be able to get through the season without having the surgery, was out. What game was he out for before this? Was that the first game of conference play?
Miller, do you remember?
Which game Duke Miles was initially out for? Useless. Okay, so it's opening game of SEC play.
See, right after you called him useless.
Yeah, I think it makes sense that he tried to push through and was thinking, maybe I can push this off until the offseason. It didn't work, and maybe he could have gotten it done a couple games ago and was like, all right, push through this couple game stretch here and then we can get it done. Yeah. And unfortunately, they still lost those games anyway. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's probably a combo of that. That question goes on to ask GLH4 VU goes on to ask, how nice is it to watch Chandler Bing finally start to put it together? He's aggressive on D and finally isn't completely stagnating the offense, going strong to the basket and has made some big threes. Need to work on his free throws though, but I love what I'm seeing from him. Also, ESPN said he's repping 275 on the bench press. Kid is strong. Trevor doesn't believe it.
I do not. I'm going to have to see video of that. I do not believe that.
Since it came up in the Bing versus Harris thread, is Jeff Taylor the most athletic guy to ever wear a Vanderbilt jersey, regardless of sport? If not, then who? Interesting. Very interesting.
To Chandler Bing, yes, I agree. I hope this can keep progressing. I am biased. Jeff Taylor is not only my favorite Vanderbilt basketball player of all time, he's top 3 in my favorite Vanderbilt athletes of all time. Yeah, I would say Jeff Taylor. Keyshawn?
Jeff Taylor is probably, I'm trying to think of other examples. Jeff Taylor's probably one, I will say, an underrated we're talking pure athlete.
Pure athlete.
Really underrated is Saban Lee. Absolute freak.
Oh,
athlete.
Great.
Freak
yes, I agree.
He's another one I would put up there. And then, to be honest, with the lack of relative skill that he had and the athleticism, the fact he actually had a pro career on a team that won championships, Damian Jones is probably up there as far as like freak athletes at his size and jumping ability. I'm going to say Jeff Taylor or Saban Lee. Those are my two.
I think that's really good. I'm probably going to agree with you in all Vanderbilt athletics. Jeff Taylor, or Saban Lee. I'm trying to think of.
I mean, also you can probably throw Enrique Bradfield in there. To be honest,
Zach Cunningham.
Yeah, but I don't think he's maybe like as measurable of a freak at like he's
as Jeff.
Yeah,
was.
football might not be like obviously like, if Vandy had a guy like DK Metcalf, he would be up there in this conversation of just pure freak. You're gonna generate. Oh, who are you?
Who was the? Oh my God, the guy that played football and basketball.
Shit.
Oh my God,
It's not Bugs. Graham, Jamie Graham.
Yeah, Jamie Graham. Yep.
Yeah, but I'm still putting Saban Lee or Jeff Taylor over here on pure freak athlete. Not diversity of athleticism. I'm talking like jumping ability, quickness. Like Saban Lee was
gnarly.
Really underrated freak athlete because is he still with the Pistons or is he playing overseas?
I think he's overseas.
Because the fact that guy
I might put Jamie
overseas.
Graham. Jamie Graham might be on my honorable mention.
That's a good one. All right, one more question here. Oh, no, he has a little bit more. Leverett getting playing time over Nicholson. Was Nicholson just a total miss by Coach Mark Byington? And you can add on to this.
I think he
something
was.
more going on with Nicholson. Number one, yes, I think he was a miss. Number two, this is not sourced. This is not anything inside. This is me completely reading tea leaves. I think Nicholson is eligible for a red shirt. And in a way, he is refusing to play because he knows he's potentially eligible for a red shirt. Complete speculation. And I think that's creating some discontent between him and the staff. Could be completely wrong. But I think he did have a sickness that affected him at the beginning of the year. And he's saying, now with guys getting paid, I can make another couple $100,000 next year transferring somewhere else. I'm not playing. I'm not giving up the chance to play again next season, to play in 10 games. Not at 100%. That's my theory. I don't know if that's correct at all. Could be completely off base. But yeah, Nicholson seems like a miss regardless.
Yeah. Also, too, he just seems out of shape.
Yep.
And that's just why, like, did the sickness put him sidelined for so long that he couldn't keep his body right?
Has it been released what sickness he had? I mean,
No.
you would assume either the flu or mono, one of those two.
It never was released.
Whatever it was, I mean, if it was a bad case of the flu, then it's a bad case of the flu, and I can get you out of shape. I will say, as far as mono goes, if that was what it was.
Mono debilitates you.
My best friend in high school, our senior year before our senior year of basketball, he came down with mono. And, dude, it was brutal. It was like 2 months without being able to do hardly anything, like completely lost all the shape that he'd gotten into and couldn't really recover from it.
Yeah.
Like it was just brutal because it wasn't like 2 months of, oh, just got to take a light. It was 2 months of like, no, you're not allowed to like walk on a treadmill for like an extended period, or that could be debilitating. But yeah, Nicholson was a miss. Last question of episode 351 from yet another door lawyer. Great guy.
Yes.
Says, I've seen online chatter of Collins contemplating a medical red shirt and shutting it down for the year. I think he means Nicholson when he's saying Collins.
No, there's
he's
been
talking about
some.
Frankie
He's talking
Collins.
about
You've
Frankie.
heard that?
Somebody posted that on the board.
Okay, I haven't seen that. Is there substance to those rumors, or is the anticipation that he'll be back sooner or later?
There's no substance to that.
Okay. See, I hadn't heard anything
I
about
saw
Collins.
I'd had some people, like individual folks, like text me, and then I saw somebody posted on the board. Yeah, there's no substance to that.
Okay, because I'm very much hoping to see Frankie Collins back.
Yeah.
I mean, he can be the difference in them winning a couple postseason games.
Yeah, Frankie is not hunting a red shirt or
Okay.
a medical red shirt now.
So that is it for premium message board questions. Thank you to everybody that submitted some. A lot less than we normally have, to be honest. I think people are snowed in.
Without power.
So, Trevor, anything else you want to add on episode 351 before we close it out?
Nope.
All right. For myself, Will Byrum, and my co-host, Trevor Hulan, this has been episode 351 of The Door Report, powered by 615 Collectible.